for sinister true encounters with the haunted. Bone-chilling stories revealed from the forbidden. Emma had to force the doors to the diner open, the neon sign flickering like a warning on a horror movie's last night. Weary from another grueling shift, she walked home, her heart racing as every shadow seemed to twitch and pulse with a life of its own. The hum of the fluorescent lights still echoed in her mind as she pulled into her driveway. Her familiar two-story house nestled among manicured lawns that hid secrets darker than any she'd ever known. She stepped onto the porch and froze. Strange symbols had been crudely carved into the wooden railing, twisting in bizarre formations that dared her to look closer. A chill ran down her spine, brushing against the backdrop of her comfortable life, suggesting something ancient and unthinkable lurked right beneath her, as if her safety had been carved away along with the wood. She shook off the unease, chalking it up to a prank by local teenagers. But with every passing hour, shadows flickered in her periphery, a phantom on her edge. Cars began to appear, unrecognizable and audibly creeping along her street, slowing when they neared her house. The air thickened with whispers. Friends became strangers. The grocery store felt thick with tension. Neighbors exchanged sidelong glances instead of smiles, and even her closest confidant, Sarah, vanished into silence, canceling plans without reason. The anxiety clawed at her insides. Something was undeniably wrong. Emma felt like she was being watched not just from afar but deeply, personally, as if the community itself had turned against her. Desperation drove her to the police station, adrenaline coursing through her veins like ice water. She was met with empty grins and dismissive chuckles. Must have been a long night, one officer mocked, validating her worst fears. Their laughter echoed, filling the very space meant to protect her, amplifying the terror wrapping around her. There was no shield for her burgeoning paranoia. Back at home, she felt the symbols on the porch beckoning, whispering of darker things that lived in the town's shadows. Emma dove into local folklore, unearthing tales of vengeful spirits and hidden sins that gripped Crestwood like an iron fist. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The weight of the stories pressed down on her. This wasn't just folklore. It was a warning. Each word bled into her reality, weaving together an unsettling pattern. Fear twisted into every conversation and every glance. Emma glanced into her yard. Paranoia tightening her throat, she saw silhouettes shuffling just beyond the trees, figures morphing into grotesque shapes that sent chills through her bones and left her gasping for breath. The neighborhood, once a place of comfort, now harbored an insidious threat. With the storm growing, Emma felt the walls close in, her children lying oblivious to mounting dread. Racing against time, she was on the brink of uncovering something horrific festering beneath the surface of Crestwood, when a knock echoed through her house late at night. Heart pounding, she inched towards the door, trepidation clawing at her insides. She opened it just a crack, and there stood a cloaked figure, an unsettling presence carrying an eerie message that could shatter everything she held dear. As she absorbed their haunting words, breath caught in her throat, an overwhelming dread washed over her. Could she escape the horror that had seeped into her life, and was it already too late for her and her children? The cloaked figure stood still, casting a long shadow that twisted unnaturally in the dim porch light. Emma's pulse thundered in her ears, drowning out the restless murmurs of the night. She could barely make out the figure's face, obscured as if hidden from the world and from her. The damp air thickened, wrapping around her like a shroud. "What do you want?" Her voice trembled. The figure lifted a hand, gesturing for silence. With an unsettling slowness, they spoke, their voice a chilling rasp that seemed to emanate from the very ground beneath her. "The darkness, it seeks you. You cannot hide from the past." Images flooded Emma's mind, flashes of old news clippings about disappearances, wounds never healed, ghosts that lingered just beyond her grasp. "What are you talking about?" she asked, panic rising. "Your children must know of what lies buried," the figure warned, stepping forward, the edge of the cloak brushing against the threshold of her home. Without thinking, Emma slammed the door shut, her heart pounding like a drum. The house felt claustrophobic now, the walls leaning in, the shadows lengthening. She hurried to the living room, her children sleeping peacefully, blissfully unaware. The figure's words echoed in her mind, a cruel refrain. What darkness? What past? Emma's heart raced as she grabbed her phone, scrolling furiously for anything that might offer clarity. But the screen remained silent. No calls, no messages, not even her own reflection looking back at her. Out of desperation, she returned to the porch, peering into the night. The figure had vanished, only the shadows remained, swirling and twisting in the faint light. Returning inside, Emma felt a creeping sense of dread settle around her. Grabbing a flashlight, she headed to the basement, a place she'd avoided since moving in. Staying in the light felt futile. Every corner seemed to hide something menacing. The basement door creaked open, releasing a cold breath that wrapped around her. The beam of the flashlight danced nervously across the walls, illuminating all the forgotten corners. Dust motes floated in the air, entrapping memories and secrets of the house. She could feel it, the weight of centuries pressing down on her. As she descended the stairs, she passed a series of boxes, filled with moldy trinkets of lives long gone. Sudden noises startled her, a rustle, then a faint whisper. It was almost as if the very walls were trying to speak. "Help us!" Emma stopped. The hairs on her arms prickled as she strained to hear. "Who's there?" she called, breath hitching. "Your past," it calls, came the answer again, now clearer. In an instant, a shadow darted from behind the boxes, and the flashlight flickered, plunging her into darkness. The air electrified, filled with a palpable terror that gripped her throat. Suddenly, she felt it, a cold hand on her shoulder. Heart-stopping, Emma spun around, only to be met with the empty void of the basement. That S when she heard it, a child's giggle, sweet yet tainted with malice, mingling with the whispers. She bolted back toward the stairs, desperate to escape the suffocating darkness, to get back to her children. But the staircase felt treacherous, the shadows reaching out. She needed answers, and time was running out. What had been unleashed into her home? What awaited her in the buried stories of Crestwood? And was it already too late for her to protect her family? With a cry nearly breaking free from her lips, she scrambled toward the light, determined to face whatever had come for her. But as she reached the top, she realized the front door swung open, a chilling breeze sweeping through, pulling her gaze outward. The night was waiting, shadows morphing into a malevolent tide, ready to claim what was theirs. Emma were coming, the sinister whispers promised. How could she fight against something so insidious, so entwined with both community and family? As dread settled into her bones, a question burned through her mind: what sinister fate awaited those unprepared to confront the darkness? The air felt thicker than ever, pressing against Emma's chest as she peered out into the abyss of the night. A chill descended, wrapping her like icy fingers, squeezing the breath from her lungs. The shadows outside didn't just linger. They shifted, morphing into something alive, something that knew her name. "Get inside. Close the door," the voice inside her screamed. Yet, she stood frozen, caught in the grip of an overwhelming dread. Suddenly, the flashlight flickered violently, casting erratic beams that did more to distort shapes than reveal them. Each flicker teased a glimpse of movements beyond her gaze. Emma's heart hammered as the whispers grew louder, echoing her fears, drowning out the stubborn hope that perhaps it was all just a trick of her mind. Finally shaking herself free, she bolted inside, slamming the door with a ferocity that rattled the frames. The safety of her walls felt like a fragile barrier against the encroaching darkness. She turned the lock, feeling an odd relief wash over her until she heard a soft knock. A child's voice, sweet yet ominous, reverberated through the door. "Let us in, Mommy," she gasped, the sound creeping up her spine like a spider crawling toward her neck. "That's not my children," the thought raced. They're asleep. But the voice was so familiar. Mommy, please. The plea echoed again, laced with desperation. Emma's heart stuttered as she glanced over the shoulder, casting a furtive look towards the living room. Her children remained undisturbed in their dreams, but the world outside beckoned. She fought the impulse to grasp the doorknob, her hand trembling as sweat dripped down her palms. What's going on? She whispered to herself, biting her lip. What do you want from me? Footsteps began to whisper on the porch, rhythmic and persistent. Each thud drummed against her resolve, urging her to look. Stepping back, she drew a deep breath, rallying the courage to open her eyes against the darkness outside. A strand of silver moonlight managed to pool just enough at her feet, a feeble attempt to combat the overwhelming night. Suddenly, a loud bang jolted her, as if something heavy collided with the door. Help us! We're lost! The voice twisted, rising and falling in a maddening crescendo. The children's pleas drowned in the chaos of cries from the abyss. No, this isn't real, Emma chanted, backing away, her pulse racing. She turned, ready to flee toward her children, but the basement door creaked open wide behind her, a dark maw ready to swallow her whole. Her instincts screamed to run, to escape, but what lay above her was as foreboding as the darkness below. Her fingers tightened around the flashlight, illuminating the stairs leading down. The chill from the basement wafted up again, thick and suffocating. The whispers from below clawed at her, beckoning her to descend, undulating like alcohol on her senses. Emma, we miss you, the voices continued, high-pitched yet layered with uncanny depth, as though many were speaking at once. They sounded so familiar. One final glance at the stillness of the room where her children slept anchored her in place. She felt as if the walls themselves had eyes watching, waiting, hungry for her choice. The flashlight flickered out, plunging her into a gut-wrenching void, the silence wrapping around her like a grave shroud. Just then, a flash of movement caught her eye, low and swift. She turned her head just in time to see a shadow slip through the open basement door. No, Emma gasped. In that moment of paralysis, the implications loomed, echoing louder than the pleas from outside. Was whatever hid below already reaching for her children? They needed her. But time was slipping away, and the shadows were rising. As the whispers intensified, twisting into a manic chant, Emma felt a darkness descend, thick and intoxicating. Which will you save? A voice rang out, resonating through her very core. The past or the future? The question hung, heavy in the air, and she felt like a marionette dancing on the strings of fate. She stood at the precipice, the echoes of the past, clawing her in one direction and her heart pulling her toward the light above. But as the last light of day vanished beyond the horizon, she realized the true horror of Crestwood lay not in its history, but in the secrets she would soon discover. What waited for her below? What would she sacrifice to protect her loved ones from the encroaching darkness? Emma took a breath, preparing to confront the shadows of her lineage, as dread filled her heart. A decision she could never take back loomed ahead. Emma's breath caught in her throat, and for a heartbeat, everything froze. The shadows flickered, teasing her with visions of what lay beyond that basement door. Every instinct warned her to flee, to gather her children and bolt to safety, but an unseen force held her in thrall. The whispering, insistent and taunting, spiraled around her like smoke, coiling tighter with each passing second. Emma, don't you want to know? The voice had shifted, soft yet snaky. It slithered into her ears, wrapping around her mind and probing at her sanity. Her heart raced, pounding against her ribcage like a trapped bird. As she stood, paralyzed, the basement beckoned, a gaping maw that seduced with secrets buried deep. Suddenly, a wailing cut through the darkness, a sound so familiar, a low and haunting lament. Mommy, the voice inched closer, slithering through the crack beneath the door, mingling with the chilling wind that whispered through the room. Guiltily, she glanced toward the living room. Her small children lay there, peacefully asleep, oblivious to the chaos that swirled just beyond their sanctuary. But she could sense the shift in her world, a dissonance that thrummed in the air like a warning chant. Two worlds collided and she was caught in the middle. A soft thud echoed from the basement, shattering the tense silence. Emma felt the ground beneath her tremble. The door creaked ever so slightly, inching open as if something unfathomable was waiting to emerge. The warmth of her home began to cool, replaced by an unmistakable chill. It was a warning, an omen. "Stay away," Emma shouted into the void, hating the tremble in her voice. But she didn't step back. Instead, she moved closer, drawn to the darkness below. An odd compulsion coursed through her veins, urging her to peer into the abyss. Then, like a cruel twist of fate, the flashlight sparked back to life, casting a narrow beam across the basement stairs. For a moment, the shadows receded, revealing the first 3 steps down. And there it was, a glittering object atop the landing, glinting in the dim light like a malevolent eye. "Come back to us." Emma, the voice was sweet as honey, laced with something darker, insidious. She felt the pull intensify, the whispers wrapping around her like a lover's embrace, each syllable worming its way into her thoughts. They seemed to promise something, answers, perhaps, or a way to mend the pieces of her fractured lineage. "Stop!" The shout erupted from her throat, raw and jagged. But the moment passed, and the eerie calm returned, leaving a thick silence that buzzed in her ears. The basement door stood ajar, inviting, a dark oasis of secrets. Unsure whether she was grateful for the reprieve or horrified by the darkness lurking within, she took a hesitant step forward. Emma needed to know the truth. Whatever twisted her past, it had never truly left. Festered below, willing and waiting for her return. As she paced toward the stairs, she felt her children stir, just behind her. A fleeting moment of clarity brought her back as their soft voices murmured from slumber. "Mommy, don't go." Emma turned abruptly. Her heart split wide open, longing to reach them. Yet the pull of the basement gnawed at her insides, demanding her attention. Shadows lurked by the door, mocking her indecision. "Which will you save?" The voice whispered again, now layered with 1,000 chilling echoes. She stood teetering on the brink, facing the choice between the unknowable past beneath and the innocent lives at stake just a few feet away. She could almost taste the impending doom, and with a surge of resolve, dashed to her children. But as she raced back, the flashlight flickered one last time, illuminating a figure standing at the bottom of the stairs, a grotesque silhouette, blending seamlessly into the darkness, grinning with malevolent delight. "Welcome home, Emma." Panic swept through her, choking the air from her lungs. What had she unleashed? What awaited her in the shadows? She knew the night wasn't over yet, and something terrible was awakening beneath the stairs. What would she find lurking in that basement? And would she be strong enough to confront it? The question lingered ominously in the air, waiting for a resolution that felt miles away. Emma's heart raced as she swung around to face the basement, the figure lingering in the shadowy depths, its smile stretching impossibly wide. Fear gripped her spine, icy fingers dancing up and down. "No," she gasped, darting back to her children, desperation fueling her every move. The silence shattered again, this time by a high-pitched giggle emanating from the basement, inhuman and distorted. It resonated in her ears, echoing her worst nightmares. "Mommy, it's fun down here." Her breath hitched in her throat. She turned toward her kids, their small forms still curled up innocently on the couch. The dichotomy of her reality felt surreal. How could innocence exist so close to pure evil? The basement door creaked wider, inviting, and the shadows swirled like hungry phantoms in the corners. "Mommy!" Her youngest squirmed, their eyes fluttering open, blinking away sleep. There's someone in the house. Her stomach dropped. They could feel it, too. She feared the truth as much as she craved it. "It's okay, sweetie. Just stay right here," she urged, her voice a thin veneer over the storm of dread. But deep within, she wondered if she could keep them safe. Darkness promised so many secrets, but at what cost? The laughter echoed again, clear and chilling, followed by a soft thud on the stairs that sent a jolt through her body. Emma took a step back, eyes darting between the children and the abyss below. The air seemed to vibrate, a subtle warning that something was uncoiling just beneath the surface, something that wanted to break free. "Come play." Emma, the voice coiled around her like a snake, teasing and taunting. She swallowed hard, her throat dry, pulse racing. She had to choose. She couldn't remain frozen, victims to whatever terror brewed beneath them. "Don't listen. Stay with me." She felt both waves of affection and fierce protectiveness flood through her, a mother-s instinct that burned within her. She grabbed each of her children's hands, clutching them as tight as she could, as if they were lifelines in raging waters. Just as she turned to make her retreat, the lights flickered again, plunging the room into darkness. Only the silvery glow of moonlight danced through the windows, casting elongated shadows that twisted grotesquely against the walls. Then came a thud, sounding right before her. "Mommy!" They both cried out, eyes widening, clearly terrified. Panic surged in her again, relentless and demanding. She peered down the hallway, the basement door now ominously ajar, the void poised to consume them all if she dared venture closer. But then, between the chorus of her children's cries and the echoes of whatever lurked below, she heard it, a soft, melodic tone drifting toward her, sweet but sickening. "You can't keep running from the past, Emma, enough," she croaked, squeezing her children's hands tighter. The threat of the basement loomed large around them. Would it reach out and take what it desired, leaving her and her children behind in emptiness? The world felt small, shrinking into chaotic flashes of reality. Ears ringing, she shuffled back toward the living room as the laughter morphed into a cacophony, resonating in her bones as she raced to the safety of the sofa. Suddenly, the sound changed. A scrape, coarse and grating against wood, as a shadow spilled from the basement like liquid darkness. Emma gasped, stepping back, knowing whatever she'd awakened now followed her, tightening its grip on her world. The basement's door thudded shut behind her, sealing an unknown fate, leaving her heart pounding, thoughts racing. The house had shifted, and she felt it in every fiber of her being. "What do you want?" she screamed, clutching her children even tighter as dread swept through the calm. "Everything you've hidden," came the whisper, now a murmur only she could hear, tantalizingly close yet infinitely far away. Her heart echoed the looming threat. What did it want with her and her family? She would have to find out, and as her resolve hardened, she knew other questions lingered, questions that would unravel everything she thought. She understood, but would she still have the strength to confront what awaited her when dawn broke? The chilling truth was coming, and with it, unfathomable choices. They would discover the darkness or be consumed by it. Emma's breath quickened. The air was thick with a tension that made her skin crawl. Shadows flickered. Her children's wide eyes clung to her as if they were her only lifeline. "Stay close," she whispered, inching back toward the safety of the living room, her heart pounding against her ribs like a frantic prisoner. Every creak of the floorboards felt like a countdown, each tick of time dragging her deeper into dread. The basement door was now firmly closed, yet Emma could sense something lurking just beyond those wooden barriers, a serpent poised to strike. "Mommy, I don't like this," her eldest, Mark, insisted, voice trembling, glancing nervously toward the door. "I know, sweetheart. It's okay," she lied, forcing a smile that felt like a mask. "We'll just wait until morning." But the chill of unease gnawed at her, each passing second amplifying her anxiety. Another giggle. This one echoed through the air like a taunt, mocking her resolve. The laughter spiraled around the edges of her sanity, pouncing on every flicker of doubt. We should leave now." Emma's voice trembled, and she glanced at the windows, her heart clenching. The darkness outside seemed alive, as if unseen eyes were watching, waiting. Just then, a loud crash shattered the stillness. Startled, she spun around. "Stay here." She pushed her children behind the sofa, heart racing. A shadow flickered through the hallway, a dark shape barely visible in the dim light. Emma's mind raced. She could barely take stock. Fear screamed louder than her thoughts. "This isn't real," she chanted under her breath, trying to convince herself as she edged closer to the hallway. Every instinct told her to run, but a strange gravity pulled her toward the source of the chaos. Her fingers grazed the wall as she navigated the darkness, careful not to make a sound. She paused, listening. Silence reigned for a moment, and then a soft, low whisper came through the air, chilling her bones. "You can't hide. You belong to me, no." Emma gasped, her hands trembling as she gripped the wall, panic surging in waves. Was it the voice from the basement? The dread flooded her, pushing her back into the living room. She dropped to the floor, heart hammering, breath hitching in her throat. She could feel her children's warmth beside her, their innocent trust igniting an ember of courage. "Listen to me. No matter what you hear, you stay silent, okay?" They nodded, fear etched across their faces. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, plunging them into darkness. A noise broke, the sound of something heavy dragging across the floor beneath the house. Emma could feel her heart in her throat, a frantic rhythm that pulsed with each sound from below. The dragging sound grew closer, like a predator stalking its prey. "Mommy, it's coming," Mark whispered, his voice trembling. Emma pulled them closer, wishing to shield them from whatever terror lurked just out of sight. And then, from the darkness, the shape of a little girl emerged, her form flickering in and out of visibility. She wore a threadbare dress, her hair hanging over her face, obscuring her features. "Play with me," she said, voice sweet but sinister. Every fiber of Emma's being screamed at her to run, but she didn't move. "What do you want?" she demanded, fear crackling in her voice. The girl raised her head, and Emma staggered back as chilling eyes met her gaze. They were empty voids, pulling in light, whispering secrets of the past. "To play," she repeated, but it was not a child's request. It was a demand. In that moment, shadows seeped from the corners of the room, swirling like a fog, closing in on Emma and her children. An overpowering sensation suffocated her. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. It wrapped around her, leaving her gasping as she clutched her children tighter. As the darkness drew near, she felt a memory stirring, a flashing image long buried. Something hidden in the depths of her mind, calling to her like the voice from the basement. "Mommy," she heard one of her kids cry. This was not just about survival. It was a confrontation with her past. Would she have the strength to face the horrifying truths about the darkness? And in facing it, would she risk losing her children? The shadows surged, beckoning her to make a choice. "Mommy!" They screamed again, terror lacing their cries. What choice would she make when the time came, and what would emerge from the depths of her darkest memories? The answers loomed closer, yet the playground of fear promised only despair. The darkness thickened, a living entity that pressed against Emma, suffocating, devouring all light. She could see the flickering outline of the girl, and despite her fear, a strange connection tugged at her heartstrings. It felt like a mirror reflecting her own horrors back at her. Emma's chest felt tight, fear sharpening her senses. "Play with me," the girl said again, stepping closer, her feet twinkling like wisps of mist. The words were innocent yet laced with something so much more sinister. She stretched out her hand, long fingers beckoning, inviting Emma into a twisted game with rules unknown. "Please, just leave us alone." Emma's shout pierced the air, desperation flickering like a candle's flame. Mark clung to her waist, his warm grip grounding her against the encroaching panic, while little Sarah buried her face into Emma's side, trembling. The shadows intensified, stretching across the floor toward them, whispering promises of power and release if only she dared to join the girl. Emma's heart raced. Was this voice controlling her thoughts, or was it inviting an embrace of her own twisted memories? "Mommy, we have to go." Mark's pleading wrenched at her heart, pulling her back to reality. That S when the laughter erupted again, louder, shriller, echoing off the walls like a chorus of demons taunting her. "You can't escape your past." Panic surged anew. "Stay together," Emma hissed, yanking her children beneath the table. It was their only refuge in this growing nightmare. She hardly recognized the wheezing tone of her own voice, and the shadows shifted, slithering closer. She pressed her eyes shut, struggling to shut out the terror. What was it the little girl wanted? There had to be a connection. Was it tied to the house? To the basement? The reality of her past struck her with dizzying force. Memories of a sister, lost to grief and despair, whispered to her like ghosts through a fog. The little girl drifted closer, her eyes still dark voids, ready to swallow whatever flicker of hope remained. You hid her away, didn't you? Just like you hide from me, she crooned, tilting her head in a way that made Emma's skin crawl. Stop it, Emma shouted, her voice smothered by fear and fury. But it was too late. The ground shook as if in response to her anger. The walls trembled, shadows leapt higher, merging into a dark choir of figures writhing in glee. Mark whimpered at her side, fear overtaking his small face. Mommy, please. A decision was forming in her mind, like a spark in the darkness that blazed into something brighter. She had to confront it. If I confront you, will you leave my children alone? Emma cried out to the figure, somehow hoping for a semblance of mercy from its twisted form. The girl laughed again. The sound was hollow, mocking. You think it's that simple? You can't break the bond we share. Emma felt the shadows push back, their force tightening around them. This was her reckoning. I won't let you take them, she screamed. Mark's tiny voice beside her split through her resolve, reminding her of everything she held dear. Suddenly, she was falling, hands reaching for the cold earth beneath her. But the children were still safe in her mind. The darkness swirled around her, ready to consume her whole. Emma! Mark screamed, tearing through the fragile fabric of panic. In that moment, she saw it, the truth woven through every dark thought. A revelation, an event buried so deep within her psyche that it had manifested into the shadows that now troubled them. The storm of voices clamored, the little girl's laughter mixing with heartbreaking cries. Was it time to face the horror of what she had done? As Emma plunged into the depths of her own buried guilt, the air crackled, and the walls creaked ominously around them. Would she emerge victorious? Or would her reckoning plunge them all into eternal darkness? Time ebbed like a fading whisper, and she felt the shadows claw at her heart, daring her to cross the bridge and face the truth. And just as the darkness pulled her under, a figure emerged in the corner of her eye, someone familiar, beckoning her into the abyss. Who was it, and what would Emma sacrifice to save her children? The answers seemed tantalizingly close, just out of reach, suffocating her resolve. Emma gasped as the world around her shifted. The sensation of falling gave way to a cold, hard floor, a sharp contrast to the suffocating darkness that had surrounded her moments before. Blinking, she looked up. The little girl stood at the edge of her vision, still wrapped in shadows, her expression an unsettling blend of glee and malice. Mommy? Mark's voice trembled, dragging Emma back into the pressing reality. Panic surged through her, and her focus darted around the room. They were still beneath the table, its wooden legs creaking under the weight of their fears. But somehow this space felt different, stretched, like they were in a warped reflection of their original home. Hold tight, kids, Emma whispered, not daring to move. Her heart raced. She had to think clearly. But what did it mean to confront the girl? Was she the embodiment of Emma's guilt, or something even darker? The laughter rippled through the air again, echoing as if disguised in waves of anguish, growing closer. You can't run from me, Emma. You'll always be alone. A chill wrapped around her spine. Shut up, she shouted, surprising herself with the force behind her words. What do you want from us? Not us, just you, the girl cooed, her voice gliding like smoke. The past is a heavy burden, I senti it. Why don't you let it go? Emma clenched her jaw, the shadows crawling closer. Memories flooded her mind, sister's laughter. A bright summer day, a darkened room filled with despair. The connection was undeniable, painfully clear. Help her. A new voice emerged, sharp and insistent. Emma squinted, trying to make sense of the shifting silhouettes around her. The figure stood just beyond reach, blurred, but undeniably familiar. Please. It stretched a hand toward her, imploring. Who? Emma managed, fighting the heaviness in her chest. But the spell of the little girl and the void around her was potent, pressing against her will. Let go of your regrets, the girl barked, swirling like a tempest. Or I'll take what's left of your happiness. 2. Was that a threat? Or could it be a twisted promise of salvation? Emma clutched her children tighter. I won't lose them. Then let us play a game, the girl taunted, her features appearing sharper, more grotesque in the dim light. To save them, you'll need to face the truth of what you've done. The ground quaked, shadows writhed like snakes. Emma could barely breathe. She needed to act. But how? Mommy! Mark's voice trembled, yanking her from despair. She wouldn't let fear engulf her. Emma pushed herself to her feet, determination flaring. Speak. What do you want me to face? The words tumbled out, raw with desperation. The little girl smirked, a predatory gleam igniting her gaze. You know, don't you? And with that, a scream erupted around her, a banshee-esque wail that pierced through the chilling atmosphere, drowning out everything. Emma stumbled back, the piercing sound coursing through her veins. Don't leave us, she shrieked, glancing down at her children, their faces pale with sheer terror. Time to decide, Emma, the girl taunted. Face the truth or watch the shadows take them. The shadows grew thicker, emanating chilling whispers that reached into her mind, teasing her with guilt and regrets. Emma felt the walls closing in, the weight of her choices threatening to crush her spirit. What truth lay at the heart of this darkness? Before she could form an answer, an insidious darkness surged around her, pulling at her very soul. Could she confront the past and save her children, or had she already lost them to this nightmare? With a single breath, Emma summoned every ounce of her courage to face the shadows, ready or not. And as she took a step forward, she realized she had only just begun to unravel the web of terror ready to ensnare them all. Emma hesitated, teetering on the precipice of decision. The shadows writhed and twisted, reaching for her with grasping fingers. She could feel their coldness seeping through her skin, a deep bone-chilling fear that constricted her throat. Mommy, please, Mark whimpered, his little voice breaking through the cacophony of dark laughter. Emma glanced down, her heart shattering at the sight of her children's wide eyes, filled with terror and disbelief. I won't let them take you, she shouted, her voice fierce enough to slice through the oppressive darkness. But the more she resisted, the stronger the shadows became. They twisted and turned, swirling around her like a storm, whispering sinister secrets that clawed at her mind. Your truth is me, the little girl sang, her voice soft yet saturated with menace. The memories you hide, the guilt you carry. Embrace them, or lose the only ones you have left. A hot tear slipped down Emma's cheek, burning her skin like acid. Memories flooded her mind, her sister's face, twisted in pain after the accident, the final breaths shattered by her inaction. The choking guilt swirled around her, saturating every thought. Stop! Emma screamed, grounding her feet firmly on the cold, hard floor. It was futile. Escape felt impossible, yet surrender would be a death sentence. Mommy, help me. Lola's voice trembled as she clung to Emma's leg, tiny hands gripping tightly, a lifeline in the chaotic storm of shadows. The little girl smiled wider, revealing sharp teeth. Will you help them, Emma? Or will you let the darkness feast? You're lying, Emma yelled, her pulse racing, every heartbeat a desperate plea for salvation. You can't have them. Then face the truth, she shrieked, and with a flick of her wrist, the shadows coiled tighter. The wall behind them lurched, revealing doorways filled with images from a past Emma wished to forget. Screams echoed. Faces flashed, lost friends, faces of those she hadn't been able to save, smiles erased by her choices. Each face pulled at her heartstrings, drawing her closer to a point of collapse. Mark, Lola, stay close. She took a trembling step toward the nearest doorway, its edges shimmering like a mirage. If she was to confront the truth, Then she needed to embrace every layer of her past, no matter how dark or horrifying. As she approached, the cries grew louder, more insistent, echoing the truth she had buried deeply. Her breath came in shuddering gasps, heart hammering heavily against her ribcage. And then, without warning, one of the doorways burst open. A torrent of shadow erupted, dragging her back as if pulled by an unseen entity. "Mommy!" Mark cried, and Emma felt his small hands slip from her grasp, her heart plummeting as she watched him be yanked away. "No, no, no." Emma clawed through the shadows, desperation blinding her. The little girl laughed, an eerie sound that cut through the air like a knife. "Let go, Emma. See what you've done." Emma felt a crack begin to form within her, a fissure of dark acceptance creeping in. The shadows whispered her sins, taunting her, begging her to relent. "Face it," the little girl leaned closer, whispering sweet lies and bitter truths. "Wouldn't it be easier to let them go? What's one less regret?" Terror mingled with betrayal, a tumultuous battle igniting within her soul. Emma's world tilted and swayed, and in that moment of uncertain vertigo, she finally saw the doorway for what it truly was. It wasn't just a passage. It was a reckoning, a place where her guilt could either destroy or redeem her. Determined, Emma stepped forward, a new fire igniting in her heart. I will not let you take them from me." In that moment, everything shattered. The air thickened, darkened, and the world around her began to dissolve into nothingness. But Emma had already made her choice. Together, we will face the truth. And as darkness threatened to consume them, she took a firm grip on her children, steadying her trembling resolve. A new scream echoed, one drowned in the chaotic chorus of shadows, and as they surged around her, she braced for the truth she was about to confront. Could she rewrite the ending, or would this darkness finally claim them all? The darkness swirled intensely, pressing against Emma like a suffocating blanket, every breath a battle. Shadows pulsed, throbbing with the weight of unanswered questions and buried memories. She felt a warmth beside her children, Mark and Lola, clinging to her for safety amidst this chaos, their little hearts pounding in synchronized fear. "Mommy, I'm scared," Mark whimpered, his voice barely a whisper. Emma knelt, pulling them close. "I know, baby, but we have to be brave." As she spoke, echoes from the abyss answered. "Don't be brave, Emma, just give in." The little girl twisted through the shadows, her smile sharp and wide, reflecting the fear festering inside Emma. "The truth will only hurt, but it can set you free." Summoning every ounce of courage, Emma stood tall, heart racing against the backdrop of chaos. It was time to face the guilt, the memories she had hidden from herself. "We're not going anywhere," she declared, her voice rippling with newfound strength. "You won't take my children." In response, shadows writhed, dropping their shrouds and revealing remnants of the past faces she recognized. Friends she had lost, neighbors she had ignored, a sister whom she hadn't saved. Each visage glared at her, accusing and sorrowful in equal measure, their whispers curling around her heart, sharp and thick like barbed wire. "Let it go, Emma," the girl taunted as she glided forward. "You've been running long enough. Stop," Emma shouted, shaking her head furiously. "I won't run anymore. If I must face the darkness, I'll do it with my children by my side." In that moment, she felt the shadows hesitate, their grip faltering. Perhaps her courage resonated, pushing against the weight of guilt heavy upon the paramour of darkness. The whispers turned into a dissonant roar as angry spirits leapt forth, desperate to unearth the buried pain that haunted her. "Mommy!" Lola's small fingers tightened around Emma's sleeve, grounding her. Together, the trio stood at the precipice, a barrier of reality woven through shadow and light. "What do you want from me?" Emma demanded, her voice ringing defiantly through the chaos. "You must choose," the little girl replied, her voice suddenly calm, deceptively sweet. "Face yourself or lose them forever." Emma took a deep breath, summoning the courage that had grown in her heart. "I will face myself." The moment she uttered those words, the air shimmered with energy, and the shadows recoiled. Then let us begin. The girl's tone held a hint of dread and mockery. Suddenly, the eyes of her sister swam into focus beside the girl, a figure from the past, lost in pain, pain that echoed within Emma's soul. You left me, the voice cried out, hollow and haunted, each word sinking like a stone into Emma's heart. No, I tried. I was so afraid. Emma stepped forward, desperate to grasp her sister's hand, to make amends that seemed eternally out of reach. Afraid of what? Her sister pressed, her eyes shimmering with sorrow yet yearning. Of losing you. Emma fell to her knees, the truth crashing over her like an ocean tide, pulling at the anchors of her soul. I failed. You deserved better. Around her, the shadows twisted, shadows of regret flared, and she could see faces appearing, families torn apart by hurtful words, broken promises, moments she had let slip away. Face it, her sister urged. Only then can you truly let me go. With trembling hands, Emma uncurled the tendrils of despair. I will face the truth. I will remember, she cried, the tide of memories flooding back fiercely. Each heartbeat rang through her body as the past unfurled. Laughter shared, secrets whispered, the last moments like flame against darkness. Each whisper, each face, danced around her, coalescing into something tangible. The shadows shrank back, twisting in anger. Emma rose, her voice clear. I loved you. I wanted to protect you, but I was just a child myself. Yes, the little girl said, her voice lowering, momentarily taken aback. But now it's your turn to be the adult. Emma took a deep breath and turned to her children. Their faces brightened with hope. I choose to stand firm for you, to embrace the truth of our past, to honor it. In that moment of acceptance, the darkness shifted again. The shadows began to lighten, transforming tumultuous screams into soft sighs. Memories flooded in like a wave, washing over them. The ghosts, now forgiving, smoothed their faces, letting love seep through every inch. As light bloomed around them, Emma felt warmth radiate. Her sister's form shifted, the pain softening. Don't let fear keep you from living, Emma. I'll always be with you in remembrance. The little girl watched, her expression wavering, struggling. But you're supposed to belong to the darkness only if I let fear rule my heart. Emma shouted, and with that, an illuminating burst of light shattered the darkness completely. The shadows evaporated, leaving only the sensation of warmth and love in its wake. Emma and her children stood together, their forms bathed in a gentle glow. I'm sorry, sister, Emma whispered, her heart now unburdened. And just like that, the spirits released their hold. Lola looked up, eyes wide with wonder, as Mark squeezed his mother's hand. Are we safe now? Emma nodded, filled with hope burning brightly in her chest. We are. We faced the darkness, and it can't hurt us anymore. As dawn broke outside, bathing their home in golden light, Emma understood she had rewritten their stories, transforming anxiety into strength, shadows into light, and fear into love. As she wrapped her arms around her kids, she realized she had finally made peace with the past. And together, they would weave a future filled with hope, no longer afraid of the darkness. Now is the time for you to step into the light. You need to subscribe now to join us for more amazing journeys and exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to help us feed the algorithm. And don't forget to flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about this ending. So what are you waiting for? Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let's spread the joys and lessons learned.